Hi, friends. I'm Scott Giles, a life coach and a consulting hypnotist, and welcome to Saturday at 2:30. Because every Saturday at 2:30 Central Time, I do a video of about 5 or 10 minutes in length about some aspect of coaching or the hypnotic arts and sciences. Today, I want to talk about post-traumatic resilience, not post-traumatic stress, post traumatic resilience, a positive thing. Now, I need to mention this is not covered in any diagnostic category. This is a term which is just getting currency in the counseling community, in the pastoral care community, and so on. It's not described in diagnostic manuals. But it's something near and dear to my heart because I am a medical hypnotist. I work extensively with people who are dealing with a life-changing medical diagnosis. In my practice, great many of my clients have cancer or are dealing with some condition related to cancer. And post-traumatic resilience is something I see all the time. Now, 19th century, the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said in Twilight of the Idols, "That which does not destroy me makes me stronger." And that kind of points to this concept. Post-traumatic resilience is a transformation that occurs following a major trauma, but it's a positive change that comes in the wake of a major incident. Now, this has been studied. Two psychologists, especially in 2010, Joseph and Butler, did research that suggested that between 30 to 70% of individuals who have experienced some form of trauma actually will later report some positive growth or change coming out of that experience. And so that led these two psychologists to describe post-traumatic growth as an experience of individuals whose development, at least in some areas, has surpassed what was present before the struggle or crisis occurred. Now, I see this routinely. People who have faced some major shattering trauma, instead of being shattered by it, instead rethink the meaning of their lives, their goals, and their aspirations. Years ago, when we were creating my I Can Act Now program, which for 30 years was at LaGrange Memorial Hospital in LaGrange, Illinois, now Amita LaGrange Hospital. This program was the first of its kind in the country for hypnotic interventions into cancer care. And one of the principles that we had in that program was, my life has been changed by my cancer. But that does not mean that my life has been changed for the worse. I will decide how my life has been changed. Because people have exactly that capacity, the capacity to decide how they will respond. And for every person who responds by being broken by a trauma, you can find others who respond by becoming stronger, just like Nietzsche said. Now, post-traumatic resilience is not the same as just ordinary garden variety resilience. That is a character trait. That's a personality style, and it occurs in the absence of some shattering trauma. Simple resilience is the ability to think positively, to look at possibilities rather than obstacles, to focus on strengths rather than weaknesses. Trauma is something that comes unexpectedly. Boom, and it's there, and you have to respond to it. But you make an adaptive response in post-traumatic resilience. A good friend of mine, Dr. David Rodemaker, a psychologist, talks about 3 stages of trauma in his work. The first is, I'm a victim of what has happened. Then after you do some internal work, it's, I'm a survivor of what happened. And then after even more work, you get to a third stage. And that third stage is, it's just part of my narrative. I don't center my life on being a victim of this or being a survivor of this. It's something that happened to me and I move beyond. I think David's exactly correct. And I would even suggest a fourth stage. And that fourth stage is that you can, in fact, not just move beyond the trauma, but in some way, I'm going to qualify this in a second, but in some way, you benefit from it. Now, I have kept a journal for many, many years, since I was 15. And in the journal keeping method I use, there's something called stepping stones, where you periodically sit down and you write the outline of your life, the major events. Now, initially, this is going to be things like, I graduated high school, I graduated college. But after a while, as you get older, the stepping stones in your outline become more, I had this experience, I learned, I had this insight, I took this direction in my life. When you do this journal keeping exercise, as I do periodically, usually at least once a year, I'm amazed at how often I discover when I look back at some really positive thing that happened in my life, I can trace the origin of that back to some major problem that I experienced. And the change came as I learned to adapt to that problem. Now, I am a clergyman. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister. I understand world scripture metaphorically, psychologically. There's a sense in which the New Testament account of the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth and the many other accounts to other figures in world scripture of significant figures who have survived death, there is a sense in which that can be read as a metaphor of this process. That bad things happen to you and you end up broken by them, but there's something that endures beyond them. Something resurrects itself into your life from that time of brokenness and leads you to a greater and better future. Now, there is one caveat I want to add to this. There's a downside to the notion of post-traumatic resilience. And the downside is that for people who have been abused or people who have experienced a significant failure of empathy from others, you're going to find that your abuser or the people who are unempathetic will actually use post-traumatic resilience as a way of dismissing the wrongness of what you experienced. Well, you turned out all right, or looks like it did you some good. Abusers routinely will use that kind of approach as a way of trying to deflect blame from themselves. They actually helped you. Or people who just weren't there when you had an expectation, a legitimate expectation that they would be for you. They'll use that as an excuse to say, well, it taught you to stand on your own 2 feet or to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And that's the dark side of this. The fact that post-traumatic resilience exists and that it's something many of us can claim and work towards does not excuse whatever trauma we experienced. But it does celebrate the ability of some people to pick themselves up, to dust themselves off, to look at the cards in their hand, sort of a mixed metaphor, but you get the idea, and come up with a plan on how to play those cards the best possible way. That's post-traumatic resilience. And it doesn't mean that what happened to you was good or right or just or fair, but it does say something very positive about the people who are able to do it. Now, a final caveat I want to add here. You're going to find people who have experienced trauma and who are broken by it, and they've not been able to find a post-traumatic resilience. They're still in pain. These people need our support, our empathy, and if we can, in an appropriate way, our help. The fact that post-traumatic resilience exists does not mean that it happens to everyone. And there are some people who've experienced something that no one could recover from readily. And these people, we don't need to dismiss them or say, well, they should have learned from it. No. There are some things that are so bad that you can't expect them to pick themselves up and dust themselves off and move forward. But for others, there are times when we can do that. And if that's happened to you, good for you. And hopefully you'll do that again in the future whenever you find the situation that's appropriate. Hey, thank you for your attention today. I will be back next Saturday with another talk about some aspect of the hypnotic arts and sciences or life coaching. Please feel free to join me here at Saturday at 2:30 Central Time. If I can be of help to you, please feel free to reach out in an appropriate way through email or through my website, and I will edit this video and put it up on my my YouTube channel as well. When I do that, the website will become obvious. If you're watching it on Facebook, you can trace my website through my Facebook landing page. We also have a Patreon channel for those people who want a deeper encounter with our work here. And check that out if you'd like to do that. And in fact, this coming week, I'm going to be shooting a video just for my patrons about the whole QAnon conspiracy theory movement. And I hope some of you will find that of interest. Thank you much. Stay well, stay safe.